We have Studio Ghibli. When you think of anime reaching beyond anime fans, when you think of animation winning Oscars and making grown adults cry in movie theaters worldwide, you're thinking of Studio Ghibli. Founded in 1985 by Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, Ghibli started as an act of rebellion. Miyazaki had just left Topcraft because he felt constrained, and he wanted to create something different. Their first feature film, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, came out in 1984, technically before Ghibli officially existed, but it set the blueprint. It was gorgeous, philosophical, and somehow both intimate and epic. But the word that made Ghibli a household name globally wasn't until 2001, Spirited Away. That film didn't just win an Oscar, it became a cultural phenomenon. It made people who'd never watched anime sit in theaters mesmerized. The way that film moved, the way it told a story about a girl finding her identity in a surreal, magical world that transcended the medium. And even now, decades later, Studio Ghibli remains untouchable. Their most recent work, The Boy and the Heron, which came out in 2023, proved that Miyazaki at 83 could still move you to tears, could still create something that feels completely new. Studio Ghibli is a #1 because they didn't just make anime. They made art that the entire world recognized as art. At number 2, we have Toei Animation. And before you think this is just nostalgia talking, hear me out. Toei was founded in 1956. They're the oldest studio on this list. They've been animating longer than most anime fans have been alive. Their first major work was Astro Boy, which aired on television in 1963. That show didn't just entertain kids. It literally defined what anime could be on a weekly schedule. It proved that you could tell serialized stories week after week in this medium. But then came 1986, and Dragon Ball changed everything. Akira Toriyama's manga had already been massive, but when Toei animated it, it became something else entirely. That show became a cultural touchstone. It's hard to overstate Dragon Ball's impact. It brought anime to the masses, and without it, the medium wouldn't be where it is now. For nearly 4 decades, Toei has been at the helm of One Piece, a franchise that has raked in staggering profits. Their latest offering, Sailor Moon Cosmos, proved once again that Toei is still a powerhouse when it comes to magical girl stories. Toei is number 2 because they're the foundation. They're the ones who proved anime could sustain itself on television, could build legacies that lasted decades, and could reach billions of people globally. And number 3, Ufotable. Now, Ufotable's story is different. This studio was founded in 1997, making them one of the younger studios on this list. They started quiet, doing solid TV animation work, not the kind of studio that made headlines. For years, they were the reliable option, the ones who could handle project management and quality control. Their first significant work was Katsura Masakazu's manga adaptations, but nobody was talking about Ufotable as a powerhouse. That changed in 2019. Demon Slayer arrived, and here's where the story gets interesting. Demon Slayer wasn't the biggest manga at the time. It was popular, sure, but it wasn't One Piece or My Hero Academia. What made Demon Slayer explode was Ufotable's animation. The director Haruo Satosuki had a vision, and Ufotable executed it with such precision, such beauty, that the anime elevated the entire story. The film that followed Demon Slayer, Mugen Train, became the highest-grossing anime film of all time, not just of that year, of all time. It beat Studio Ghibli's Princess Mononoke. That's not just a success, that's a statement. Ufotable's recent work on the Swordsmith Village arc proved it wasn't a one-hit wonder. They've created a template for how to adapt manga at the absolute peak of quality. Ufotable is at number 3 because they represent what happens when technical mastery meets artistic vision. They showed the industry that animation itself could be the star. Number 4 is MAPPA, and this is a studio with a story that'll mess with you a little. MAPPA was founded in 2011 by Masao Maruyama and several other animators who left Madhouse. They started as rebels, people who wanted to do things differently. Their early work was solid but not revolutionary. Carol and Tuesday, Dororo, some solid adaptations. Then, in 2020, something shifted. Attack on Titan was already a massive franchise, but the final seasons, animated by MAPPA, took the narrative to places that shocked everyone. Those last seasons weren't just beautiful, they were controversial, raw, and uncompromising. The animation style changed, the tone shifted, and some fans hated it while others called it genius. That divisiveness? That's the mark of a studio willing to take risks. But MAPPA's real moment of global dominance came with Jujutsu Kaisen. That series became the phenomenon. The animation in Jujutsu Kaisen is insane, it's dynamic, it's fluid, it has weight and impact. Their recent work on Chainsaw Man showed they're not slowing down. MAPPA is at number 4 because they're the modern powerhouse. They took the rebel spirit from their founding and turned it into a studio that doesn't just follow trends, they set them. At number 5, Bones. Bones is the studio that doesn't get enough credit for consistency. Founded in 1998, Bones has been quietly producing masterpiece after masterpiece for nearly 25 years. Their early work included The Vision of Escaflowne, which was gorgeous and showed they understood how to handle character-driven storytelling. But then came Full Metal Alchemist. Both versions, the 2003 anime and the later Brotherhood, are considered among the greatest anime ever made. The way Bones adapted that manga, the way they understood Arakawa's themes about equivalent exchange and the cost of ambition, was masterful. Then they grabbed My Hero Academia. That series became a weekly appointment for millions of people. Bones took Kohei Horikoshi's manga and animated it with such energy, such character focus, that every arc felt earned. Their recent work, including the My Hero Academia films and other projects, proves they're still at the top of their game. Bones is at number 5 because they're the steady hand. They're not flashy, but they understand story, character, and how to make you care. That's harder than it sounds. Number 6, Madhouse. Here's where we talk about a studio that's been through hell and somehow survived. Madhouse was founded in 1972, making them one of the oldest. Their first major work was adapting classic manga into TV shows, but in the 1990s and 2000s, Madhouse became synonymous with psychological thrillers. Death Note, animated by Madhouse, is still studied in animation schools for how to build tension through editing and sound design rather than just flashy animation. The way that cat and mouse game between Light and Nell played out visually was masterful. Then came adaptations like One Punch Man. That series became huge, and Madhouse's animation for it, particularly Shingo Natsume's direction, was revolutionary. But here's the thing, Madhouse hit hard times. The industry evolved, priorities shifted, and for a while Madhouse seemed to be fading. Then they came back with shows like Chihayafuru, proving they could still handle nuanced, character-driven stories with beautiful direction. Madhouse is at number 6 because they represent redemption. They've fallen and risen multiple times, and that resilience is part of their story. At number 7, we have Gainax. And if you want to talk about a studio with an identity crisis and a revolutionary spirit, Gainax is it. Founded in 1981, Gainax started as a doujin group fans making fan content that was so good it became professional. Their first major work was Gunbuster, an OVD series that was funny, emotional, and surprisingly deep. But then came Neon Genesis Evangelion. Released in 1995, Evangelion was supposed to be a giant robot show. Instead, Hideaki Anno created something that deconstructed the genre entirely. It was depressing, it was introspective, it was beautiful, and it was incomplete because of the studio's budget crises. That incompleteness became part of the art. Gainax wasn't trying to make the perfect show. They were trying to say something true about depression, isolation, and self-worth. Then came Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann in 2007, a show about the power of belief and reaching for the stars. It was colorful, it was loud, it was everything Evangelion wasn't, and it was genius. Gainax is at number 7 because they're the rebels. They don't play by industry rules. They make things that feel risky, and sometimes that risk pays off in ways that influence the entire medium. Number 8, Studio Pierrot. Pierrot was founded in 1997 and quietly became the studio behind one of the biggest franchises ever, Naruto. Their first notable work was animation assistance on various projects, but Naruto became their identity. For 15 years, Studio Pierrot animated Naruto through the original series, Shippuden, and the movies. That's a generational commitment. A show that long shapes how an entire demographic thinks about anime. The animation wasn't always perfect, but the consistency, the character growth, the emotional beats, all of that created a franchise that's still beloved. They followed Naruto with Black Clover, another long-running series that became huge in the community. Their recent work proves they're still relevant, but you can feel that they're defined by those massive series. Studio Pierrot is at number 8 because they chose stability and long-term storytelling over flashy one-offs, and that choice defined them. At number 9, Wit Studio. This one's interesting because Wit Studio is actually a subdivision of Wit. They were founded in 2012, making them one of the youngest here. Their first major project was Attack on Titan, which they animated for the first 3 seasons. That show became a cultural phenomenon, and Wit Studio's animation, particularly the direction by Tetsuya Tashima, was crisp, dynamic, and incredibly efficient despite having smaller budgets than competitors. Then they did Vinland Saga, which was a completely different project. It was a historical drama, gorgeously animated, with a slower burn but incredible payoff. The direction, the use of negative space, the way they let scenes breathe, it was directorial mastery. Wit Studio is at number 9 because they're the quality over quantity studio. They don't pump out dozens of shows. They do fewer projects but with such precision and care that each one feels special. Their recent work has shown they're still committed to that philosophy. And finally, at number 10, Studio Dean. This is the studio everyone loves to joke about. Studio Dean was founded in 1975, making them one of the oldest, but they've had the roughest ride. Their early work was solid, but Dean became infamous for inconsistent quality and, let's be honest, sometimes questionable animation choices. But here's where the story gets interesting. Studio Dean adapted the Fate series. The Heaven's Feel trilogy they created, those films are stunning. Directorial vision, animation quality, personality, emotional weight, it all came together. It proved that Dean wasn't incompetent. They just needed the right project, the right director, and the right resources. Their recent work on Higurashi and other projects shows they're still fighting, still trying to prove themselves. Studio Dean is at number 10 because they represent persistence. They've been mocked, they've had failures, but they keep working, keep improving, and every now and then they create something that reminds you why they've survived this long. So here's the thing about anime studios that's worth understanding. These aren't just factories pumping out content. Each one of these 10 studios is full of people who fell in love with storytelling, who chose to work in animation despite knowing it's brutal, underpaid, and exhausting. Studio Ghibli made us dream. Toei gave us the foundation. Ufotable showed us that animation itself could be the story. Mappa took risks. Bones never compromised on character. Madhouse survived when it shouldn't have. Gainax broke rules we didn't know existed. PRL built something that lasted generations. With Studio proved that restraint could be a strength. And Dean never gave up. These studios didn't just make anime. They fundamentally altered the trajectory of an entire medium. Their work is the reason anime transformed from a specialized interest into a global force, impacting filmmakers, game developers, and artists across the globe. The next time you settle in to watch an anime, take a moment to consider the studio's name. That name embodies decisions made, stories lived, hardships endured, and aspirations pursued. That's the true enchantment of anime. And if you like this video, then consider subscribing this channel and hit the notification bell. And yeah, check out our new video too.